to sew with Monty. And this little video is a quick one, but it's how to sew a round pocket, a pocket that has rounded corners. There's a little trick to it that I'm really excited about showing you that makes it so much easier and looks so nice. Now, if you notice our little pocket sample, this would represent the garment, and these are the punch holes where the pocket would go. It's always a good idea to mark your pocket just inside the corner edge of your actual pocket and not right on it. That way, if you have a mark out there, it won't damage your fabric and show. It'll be inside your pocket. So you want to mark it just inside when you're marking your fabric, like I've done, so that you don't have that exposed underneath your pocket. Now, notice the pocket pattern here. I've got notches here, and you may have to add these because not all patterns come with this. But it's a little notch to remind me of where I need to run my stitch line so that I can make this corner work successfully. So on my pocket I have notched where the fold is. I've also notched both corners of my pocket so that you can see where we're going to sew. Okay, so let's go over to the sewing machine and I will show you the next step. So now we're ready to sew our rounded corner pocket. And what I've done is pre-press this hem, this little edge of my hem or my fold hem under a 1/2 inch. Now we will say that this is the right side and then this gets folded down like this. So what I did was fold this under so I don't have a raw edge here on the back side of my pocket where I have my hem. So we're going to fold right sides together because we're going to sew it. And I'm going to pin it right along here. Now I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance because this is the pattern, the sample pattern seam allowance. But if you're sewing this off of a store-bought pattern, you most likely will have a 5/8 inch seam allowance. And you want to pay attention to your seam allowance and make sure you use the proper size because it will make a difference in how things fit and how your pocket actually fits on the garment. So I'm just going to lock stitch it here, and I'm going to lock stitch it at the top going out. And also I'm using contrast thread to show how it's made. You definitely want not to do that. You want to use thread that matches your garment so that it looks really nice. Now when I turn it, it will be, the raw edge will be captured with the fold. But before I do that, I want to clip my corners just a little bit, and if this fabric has any weight to it, I'm going to grade it. See how I just cut this edge shorter than this edge? That takes the bulk out of this corner here. So you want to cut the corner first and then grade. That's called grading. Cut one layer only, a little bit shorter than the other. So I do my corner first, see, like that, and then I take this piece and I cut it, only that piece, a little bit shorter than the other, about halfway. This is going to make the corner turn so nicely. So you get a nice sharp corner there. See the difference? If I turned all that bulk in there, I wouldn't have had these crisp little corners at the top. Okay, now let's talk about this section. So the rounded corner, I'm going to go in the longest stitch length I've got, which is 5, 5.5, 5. Okay, and I'm not going to back up, but I'm going to sew from this notch about 3/8 inch away from the edge over to this notch. So if you're working with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, you want to sew about a 1/2 inch away from the edge. You want it about 1/8 of an inch shallower than your actual seam. And I'm going to go slow because I want to turn this corner accurately. If you have to pick your foot up and move your fabric, so be it, because you may have to do this a couple of times, but you want to stay as close to that edge. See how slow I'm going? It's going to make a beautiful corner because of that. Don't back up, leave your strings long. So we're going to do both sides of this. I've got this little stitch here, right along here. Now we're going to go over to the iron and I'm going to show you what to do in the next step. So now I'm ready to press my pocket. And notice the line here, the little stitch line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it just so it starts to cup in. Now sometimes on a short distance like this, you may want to pull your threads to the same side and tie a knot in them so that they don't pull out as you're pulling it, because this is a very short little area that you're going to be trying to put ease in. So I'm just going to tie a little quick knot here, just a little square knot, so that my thread doesn't pull through while I'm trying to gather this up. So I'm only going to pull from one side. It's not very long, but what I want to do is cause this corner to pucker. See how I'm doing that? So that it's got puckering in it. Now I want to spread the puckering out, the little gathering, puckering, and I want to make sure that I don't have any little tucks in it, because my next move is I'm going to put a pin. I'm going to turn it up a 1/2 inch just before the pucker and a 1/2 inch just after that pucker, like this. I want to make sure this is nice and straight. I've pinned my pocket down to the ironing board. So you see I've got it pin, pin, pin. Now the whole idea here is to pull this pucker or ease so that it starts to lay flat along this curve here. See? Like that. And once I have it laying flat, like this, I may want to put another couple pins because I want you to be able to see this pretty good. So you may want to pin it a couple of times. See how round that is now? And all the puckering is inside because it's 1/8 of an inch in from the actual edge of my pocket. Now I just give this a nice little steam. I'm going to go ahead and steam it up here, all this section. And then I'm going to come over and do the same thing over here. And then you just pin it down. See? See how nice that's starting to look? I'm going to have 2 nice little round corners. So I'm just going to steam this all down now. I'm ready to bump press. I don't want to stretch anything, so I'm just going to bump press and get it nice and clean like that. Now I'm going to pull it up, and before I trim all my strings, I want to look at it on the other side. So I'm going to take all the pins out. Lots of pins, but the pinning is good because that's what holds it and keeps its shape. Now see, I have these nice little round corners on my pocket. Isn't that nice? So when I top stitch around there, they'll make a beautiful little corner. Now if you want to compare them and make sure that they're coming out even, you can fold them like this and just take a double check to make sure that they're the same length and the curves are the same. Not a bad idea to do. Once you have that information, you can go ahead, press it really good on the top side, and now we're ready to sew it to our shirt or our garment. So the first thing I'm going to do on my pocket is stitch my hem down. And I'm paying attention to how far over I'm coming on my plate here so that my hem stays the same distance from this fold line. So I'm just going to go forward just a little bit and then back up just a tiny bit and then go forward. Now I'm sewing on the wrong side of this fabric. If your tension is very good, which it should be at any time you're sewing, you want to sew on the wrong side for this so that you make sure you catch it, and you can also see that you're staying even amount away from the edge. Because sometimes your fold line might be off just a tiny bit, as is mine. See how it's a little bit tighter here, not quite as much there? So you want to make sure, see how nice and even it is on this side? You want to keep it even from the fold. That's more important than keeping it right on the edge of the underside fold. So tension should always be nice enough that you can do this either side. Now we're going to place our pocket on our little punch holes. I'm going to put my pin in right here, making sure that I've just covered my punch hole. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I want to just cover my punch hole. And this time I'm going to put the pin in the opposite direction. That way I can take it out as I come to it. And I'm going to pin my corners like this. Now if you have your strings and you're ready, you can trim them now. Just don't get crazy trimming them because you don't want this to trim them so close that your corners come loose from your gathering, and then you can't make them perform like you want them to. So I'm going to put my pins in this time perpendicular to the edge so I can get as close to those corners as possible. And as I am going to do for the rest of my pocket, I'm going to put one in the center here. This way I can get really close to my pocket. It's going to be really cute. This is a great little pocket to make with these rounded corners. It looks good on a like a barn jacket, or if you want to do something kind of military or utilitarian looking. This is a really cute pocket for those. Now when I sew this, I'm not going to start at this top edge. I'm going to do this little trick. I'm going to come in here right at the hem, and I'm going to sew a slight angle. Now I like this finish because it really adds a little finesse to the pocket. So I'm going to go right in, right on the seam. So I'm going to keep moving it until I get it right on there. I've got it set on 3, and I'm going to sew at a slight angle. Oh, just a very slight angle. I want to come up so I'm about 2 stitches away from the raw edge, or the folded edge. So now when I get up here, I'm going to hand turn it so that I'm lining up right with the outside edge. And I want to sew my pocket with about a 1/16 inch seam allowance. I've got a little thread under here that's caught, so I'm going to go ahead and trim it so it doesn't cause a bunch up. Now I'm going to go all the way around my pocket. So as I come down through here, see, I'm going to intersect that same little seam, trying to stay a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge of my pocket. And I'm going to go nice and slow around this curve. Now some people will shorten their stitch length here. If you need to do so, do it. You can go down to 2.5 right in this little corner to get it just right. But see, I'm going really slow. And just take my time. And as if I need to pick the foot up and reposition it, so be it. I want to make this corner look beautiful, so I'm not going to cheat it by trying to go fast. And then when I get straight again, I can sew a little faster. And then when I enter this one, I'm going to slow back down again. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of tip it a little bit, go 2 or 3 stitches, tip it a little bit, take my pin out as I come to it, and just go slow like that. And once I get around this corner, I can go a little faster again. And I'm going to come all the way up to the top. And when I get up here, I'm going to take this pin completely out. I'm going to come all the way to the top. And when I get to the very top edge, put my needle in, raise my foot up, and I'm going to come over that same stitch length. I just did 1 instead of 2. So I'm going to come over 1, and then I'm going to angle back down to my hem of my pocket. So when I get down here, I'm going to put the needle in, back up about 3 or 4 stitches. And let's look at our pocket. I think it's looking really good. So trim my strings. See, and there you have a rounded corner pocket. Isn't that nice?